Fancast. My name's Luke Payson, and I am excited and honored to have a friend of mine and frequent guest of the show, the Adonis, Jeromy Mitchell, back on the show. Jeromy, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, man. It's always a good time.
It's great having you on the show. I should have said we have had a bit of a pause in your appearances on the show. You were frequent at one point. You were coming on quite often because you were staying very busy. You ended up having to take, I think, about a year and a half. You'll tell me how long it actually was away from professional MMA due to an injury. You're now back. You've just had a really exciting, dominant performance in Combat BJJ, and you have a big MMA fight. Your return to the cage in under a month. So I'm super excited to have you back on. But first, we have to talk about what I'm wearing here, which is the Adonis Jeromy Mitchell shirt, which I've worn it, but never on the show before. And people love it. People are always excited to see it. You are the first and only MMA fighter that has ever mailed me, given me a shirt to wear on the show. So I really appreciate that. You will always be the first person to ever think to send me a shirt. So I really appreciate your support. It's a beautiful design. And so let's talk a little bit about merch. Who came up with this design? Can people still buy this design or other fight shirts for your upcoming fight? Let's talk about kind of how important that is for a fighter to kind of have their own brand and their own merch. We'll start with there.
Yes, sir. So, it sounds like all your other guests need to step it up. Yeah, so that's one of the clean cut killer lines. One of the what we try to do is all the fighters that we sponsor, obviously including myself because I was the originator of the brand. We try to come up with a fight specific shirt, and yes, those are still available for purchase, and they can go from upcoming fights, and hopefully they can rock it as good as you do. So.
And let's talk about Clean Cut Killers a little bit. It's a great name. You obviously created the name. Tell us how you came up with the name, because I know you hashtag it in all your posts. And is it an MMA t-shirt? Is it a t-shirt, or is it a management team? Like, what is Clean Cut Killers?
So I guess it all started off with a friend or a coach of mine's picture caption. And I was like, man, that's pretty catchy. I'm gonna run with it as long as it's okay with you. And for me, I guess you could call it a t-shirt company. It's more of just MMA gear. We have fight shorts, we have rash guards, t-shirts, so on and so forth. But really, what it originated as, like I said, and the meaning behind it is, it's the guy in the room that doesn't look very scary, doesn't seem like he's a threat, but then he's probably the most dangerous guy in the room. If I had to give it like a character, it would be like a Jackie Chan character. You know, the guy's like, I want no problems, but he has no problem once there is a problem. So,
well, that is really cool. Yeah. How many fighters do you have on the Clean Cut Killer brand now?
I want to say we're up to about 8, somewhere between 8 and 12. So
that's really nice.
Local between like Pennsylvania. Most of them are from our home gym and gyms down in Tennessee. Around this little area. I would like to get to I guess a base of people that are around me and be able to help them and create something for them to promote themselves and their well. So starting local, branch out eventually. So
yeah, that is really cool. And it shows sort of the business entrepreneur side of you. I think all fighters are entrepreneurs because you are the brand. We've seen that with Conor McGregor, although he's certainly not my favorite. He's a branding genius. And as a fighter, you are your own entrepreneur. And, we saw that with another guy I don't particularly care for, the Money Team, right? Money Mayweather. And he kind of really showed that being his own management team was smart for him because of how much money he's made. So I think somebody like you, your nickname is fantastic. The Adonis is just incredible, but also Clean Cut Killers, the fact that you're already creating a brand, and it's your business side, I think it's really cool. Let's talk the bad news about your injury. Has it been a year and a half? I know it's been a chunk of time. And what was the rehab like for you?
So it's been about a year since I got to compete. It was March since I got to compete. Following that fight, I was actually scheduled to compete, I believe, last October. And in the camp going into that fight is when I acquired the injury. I was shoot boxing. we were sparring. I threw a punch, left overhand into a takedown, and the guy just got an underhook. Very basic thing, happens, I don't know, probably 1,000 times in my life. And I just felt my bicep roll up my arm. I'm sure you've seen, or at least
Yeah.
people watch videos of somebody's bicep. They're doing curl arm, yeah. And as soon as it happened, I could feel it slide up. It felt almost like a cramp that didn't stop at the normal like tension point. And I immediately knew something bad happened. I was pretty sure I had tore it, even though I've never, experienced that injury or anything beyond the video. And so I had a friend. She was like, "Well, I can get you into a doctor, at least get you checked out. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious." And so I went to the doctor, and strangely enough, it actually started to feel much better within the days leading up to that point. I almost didn't go, and wife actually talked me into it, thank God. And I went, and he was like, "Yeah, you tore your distal bicep tendon. Let's get you scheduled for surgery." But he had to go out of town, or actually went out of the country for vacation. And usually they would like you to have the repair done within the first 3 weeks. And this is a little bit more than I've ever said about it, but I ended up taking me about 7 weeks to get the surgery, and I actually ended up going through a different doctor. And honestly, I didn't know that I was going to be able to get the surgery because of the time frame, which would have completely ended my chances of fighting, or at least at a very competitive level. So, I didn't realize at the time that I was going through a major case of burnout until I was kind of sidelined, and I thought that I wouldn't really get to do this anymore. So, God puts little blessings throughout our lives in ways that we don't understand. And in this case, it was the blessing of getting to realize how fortunate I am to even do this sport. And, I feel like it makes me better for that. And I've honestly came back. I've been 10 times the fighter I was, because I actually care. I'm actually mentally there. I'm not just going through the motions, not checked out. But I had a lot of difficulties with the surgery due to the timeline. The doctor actually told me following the surgery that he was like, if anybody came in with this exact injury and this timeline again, I would tell them not to perform the surgery. So the surgery was supposed to be about an hour-long operation. They ended up taking about 3 hours for me due to how the tendon, think like a rubber band that's been weathered, had I guess shrank up. And yeah, it was pretty rough. He actually had he told my wife, and thank goodness that she didn't tell me, because at the time I would not have been ready to hear it. But he told me in further checkups that he didn't think I would ever straighten my arm out again, full range of motion. And so at the first little checkup, which I don't do anything in moderation, so that includes the rehab of my arm. I was actually glad to greet him by reaching out and shaking his hand with full extension. And I had great physical therapists that helped me, and I doubled down on everything he said. I did a lot of research going into the buildup of the surgery, on the rehab process and stuff. And I was actually able to return to training back in February when my release date was in April. And I've had no issues. Everything's been great. And like I said, I'm back better than I was before the injury. So.
Wow. Well, praise God for your recovery and for your wife. And I know she's a great wife, mom, and teammate of you, because I know she's a big part of your not only life, but also your MMA journey. So I'm glad you were able to put the work in. Recovering from any type of injury is a huge deal, something that severe. And I'm also glad it was used, like you said, it got the hunger back because you got to recover, which is a blessing in disguise. Let's talk about your, I guess it's more than dipping your toes back, because you have this big fight coming up that we're going to talk about. But you did combat jiu-jitsu for the first time. Kind of walk us through that. What made you take it about a month out from your MMA fight? What was it like for you getting in there for combat jiu-jitsu?
So it's kind of cool because you've had tag team jiu-jitsu, you've had combat jiu-jitsu, but it's the first time that they've ever had tag team combat jiu-jitsu. And so I guess either it'll continue on and I'll be a very small chunk of jiu-jitsu history as one of the pioneers of it, or it'll never happen again. Who knows? And I'll be one of the only people that's ever done it. Either way, cool. But I think it'll definitely take off. The crowd really seemed to love it. It was a lot of fun. Like, I mean, fighting, I would love to lie and say it's fun, but it's a lot like work. It's a lot of business. It's very serious for me. I don't play around with it. But the jujitsu was very fun. I had a great time, even in the competition. And so one of the gyms that I train at frequently is Team Oxendine down in Tennessee. And the coach of the gym was the promoter of the event. He had reached out about doing it. And I was like, sure. So I got one of my teammates. He was interested. And we decided to do it. And it was actually against one of my former opponents. So that was kind of cool. We had, we were somewhat friends. And I don't know, it was just really fun to do. The rules were absolutely madness. You had like a 5 minute or 5 second double team. You had one save. And I don't know, it was crazy, but it was a great experience. And something this time that I've never done before is I think of, like, I hate to use the term of alcohol because I'm pretty against it. I don't drink myself, but somebody that takes one shot of alcohol the very first time, they'll feel something. Somebody does that every day. After a while, they feel nothing from it. And I think that we can do the same thing with adrenaline. And if you experience adrenaline every once in a while, then you're pretty sensitive to it. But if you can experience it often, then you become a lot less sensitive to it. So for me, it was a good way to seek out adrenaline prior to the fight, and I would like to stay active like I did before. That way, I can build up that adrenaline tolerance, and even if it's working myself up before going and sparring at another gym, or having a hard spar day where we've incorporated having like other people from the gym coming and watching these rounds and actually even judging them in the gym.
Sure.
So rounds just to create that environment, because the crowd changes everything. You'll have so many people that can perform in a gym, and then they get in front of the crowd and they either gas out or they're a shell of what they are at home. And so we've been trying to recreate that feeling as much as possible so that I'm somewhat desensitized to it. And I don't know if you're familiar with David Goggins.
Oh, I am. I am. I was just watching his pull-up record getting beaten by some son of a really stud outdoors guy himself. Like, Goggins was very supportive. A couple months ago, some young kid did a ton of. But yes, I'm very aware of David Goggins and his mindset. But carry on. What was the mindset from David Goggins?
So for him, he was talking about when he was in the SEALs, all the guys were, in the cold water, and they were thinking about they couldn't wait to get home to where their warm bed was, or they wished the water wasn't so cold or anything. And he said not him. It was colder and he wished they were in there longer. And, at the first time that I read that, maybe 22, 23, I believe was when I read his book. I'm 26 now. I was like, that's insane, but it's admirable.
Yeah.
And what it comes to now is, for me, like I was talking about adrenaline, is it's all about reframing your mindset and your perception of things. And like I said, a lot of my time off gave me the ability to do that. But when I look at adrenaline now, it used to be like, why am I having these feelings? Or, oh man, I hate these feelings. Or, before a fight's the worst. You know what I mean? Because everybody has them, and anybody that says they don't either has something a little loose, or they're poker facing very well. And but I've learned that if you instead try to find as much adrenaline in it as you can, then it almost feels like the water's not cold enough, or you're like, man, I'm not nervous enough. I got enough adrenaline, because you're always wanting more of it.
Sure.
And applying that has helped me reframe to where not only are the nerves better, the mindset's better. It almost gives me like a mini goal. Like, I want as much adrenaline as I can, whether it's going into sparring. Now, I'm not saying hard spar and be reckless, but you know what I mean. The times that you do hard spar, or rather it be jump into a combat jiu-jitsu match, or whatever I can to find that feeling. And then on fight day, I want as much adrenaline as I can. I want it to be as scary as possible. And it's never going to live up to that expectation. But if I can seek it, then when I feel it, it feels like I'm on course, not like something. And I think that is something that moving forward and will benefit me. And that combat jiu-jitsu match was a small stone for that.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Great tie into David Goggins' mindset. Even people that aren't fighters or aren't in the military can benefit from listening to David Goggins. He's got tons and tons of motivational stuff out there that's very introspective. He shares not only the pictures of how big he was before the SEALs, but also kind of the mindset that he had, that he would say was soft and not looking for progress. And now he's 48 years old and he's just looking for progress and things to challenge himself. But I also now want to call you a pioneer in tag team combat jiu-jitsu. I didn't even know that was a thing. So if this takes off, like you said, it might. If tag team combat jiu-jitsu takes off, then you're a pioneer. If it doesn't, then you're kind of like cool, but even more cool because you're one of the rare people that have been able to do it. Let's talk about your fight coming up for Showcase MMA. You've obviously fought for them before. It's June 24th. Very exciting. According to Tapology, they only have 3 fights officially announced. You're one of them. As of now, it looks like you're the main event. I don't know if that'll hold, but as of now, it looks like you're the main event. This will be in Kingsport, Tennessee, Showcase MMA. And I already said June 24th. So let's talk about it. You're going up against Kiera West, and it's a pro 135 fight. What are your thoughts coming into this fight?
So Kiara has I believe he has 3 professional fights, and he hasn't had the best start. But if you look into those, he's fought some very good guys. One of those was a rematch, and the other one was a guy that was also had a few wins as a professional as well. So, and then the guy they had the rematch with was undefeated going into it. So, I believe his record is a representation of challenging himself, and more than a poor quality. And I mean that, like I said, that's very admirable. I think June the 24th, he's bit off more than he can chew once again, and moving forward into that, I see it being a very dominant performance for me, mainly due to just the skill set. Even out of the losses that I have taken, I've dominated the fight up until the moment that I've gotten caught by something, and a lot of that I wrap back to the mental exhaustion, the burnout, almost the feeling of like I just want it to be over with, and like I said, that's not present this time. I love what I do, and I'm grateful that I get to do it. And I don't know. I think it'll be a dominant showing, and it's good to be back at 135 where I feel like I belong. The first time that I made this weight, I'd won a professional title, and after I put too much pressure on myself to kind of maintain what I would say is an overly strict diet, and it made it so unbearable that it just added to that burnout. And so then, I moved up to 145. Didn't feel like I quite had the size for it, even though I was putting on these good showings. It felt like, one, I was mentally burnt out, and 2, I spent a lot of time lifting weights and things to maintain a size that I could be competitive with these guys. And I would burn myself out as well trying to move around the bigger fighters. And as I got injured, I lost some of the mass that I had put on, and I was like, you know what, I think I can make another shot at 135. And so that's kind of what has brought me back to the weight class and where I feel like I truly should be anyhow. So now I just have like I said, a spark to want to try to do it again. And this time I've done it in what I would say is a way more sustainable way. So,
and that's the important part. And it's a learning process. Life is a learning process. You're a dad, being a dad is a learning process. You're not going to be a perfect dad in every situation, but you want to always work for progress in that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I know previously you've talked about the time you made it to 135 and fought. And of course you won a title, and it was a great night. And I again, you're kind of talking about the benefits of that arm injury, that it ended up kind of allowing you to get back to a more natural weight class. We've seen some fighters do very well at a heavier, bigger weight class. We've seen some fighters do better at a more natural, lighter weight class. Like I often think of a prime Frankie Edgar. If there had been a 145 or a 135 in the UFC, he was a multiple-time champ at 155, probably doing kind of like what you're doing, trying to live, trying to eat, trying to stay up. being always outsized. And of course, he ended up fighting, I think, at 55, 45, and 35. But by then, he was kind of later in his career. So it makes sense to take advantage of the wider and the more variety of weight classes, which I think is exciting in MMA. That's also a really good tie over for people that don't know. Go back and look up the WEC. They were like the big time. The UFC actually bought them out. They never actually went under. They were bought out by UFC and got a lot of great fighters. Donald Cowboy Cerrone, Dominic, the Dominator Cruz, I think in many ways, and Uriah Faber were kind of maybe the biggest people out of there, but they were the smaller weight classes. So for you, you mentioned your age, you're 26, you're established as a pro, you're 3-2 right now, and this is really a great opportunity, like you said, to reinvigorate yourself and kind of go on a run. You win this fight, you're 4-2, you put a couple fights together, and then you're building your pro record and could be looking at sort of the bigger leagues. So for you, what are your thoughts? I guess as a nice way to kind of wrap up. I hope to have you on after the show to catch up about your fight and your win. So what are the thoughts you want to kind of end on coming in to what really is a very emotionally satisfying fight that you can even get in there and fight come June 24th for Showcase MMA?
Well, it's a big fight in the terms of I get to make my return. And it opens up a lot of potential because it puts me back on the board. Not that I necessarily fell off, but it's been quiet for me, and it's a good chance for me to make a statement to remind people, where I left off beforehand, and as well, like you said, I have the opportunity to build off of this and to work my way to a big show, and that's ultimately my goal. And I would like to see me knock this one out, hopefully get another one in September, if not sooner. Maybe throw another professional belt in there, on that one or maybe the one following. And then, find myself on the Contender Series next season, UFC, Bellator by the end of next year. That would be, the ultimate path that I would like to follow. So.
Well, it's great that you can see those goals. It's not only important in MMA, but just in life, to kind of have the near goals, the goals that you do every day, and then the bigger goals that are about a year and a half away. That's what's really good, and constantly be looking at both of those short-term, like immediate short-term, medium, and long-term. So I can't wait to kind of talk to you more about that. I do know that the Dana White Contender Series, it's season maybe 5, but they're doing a ton more. I think they're doing 22 weeks this year or something. So a ton more weeks. They used to do, I think that's officially announced. I think they used to do around maybe 8 to 10 weeks. So it makes a lot of sense that you're targeting either Bellator or PFL. Looks cool. Like I'd love, I know that they try a couple different things. They're trying to push into, what are they called? Like they're trying to do pay-per-views. They're trying to do one-offs, like some of the big fighters they're signing, they're trying to do one-offs for, but they still have a very cool format for the tournament. I think that's super cool. I know it doesn't work for everybody. I would assume we'd be on board. I don't even know if they have a bantamweight $1 million tournament, but I'm throwing it out there. If things go well for you, that would be really cool. But the Contender Series has been really great. I think it really shows. I know Tough is going to be exciting this season because of Conor McGregor versus Iron Mike, but at the same time, I think that's more the personalities of the coaches. Tough is exciting, but I think and I've had fighters on that have had Tough experience and Contender Series, and I think what's cool about Contender Series is you get to train at your gym with your regular coaches, your regular people. It's a real fight that goes on your record, whereas the Tough fights don't. And there's not the drama. You don't have to spend 8 weeks away from your wife and kid. I mean, there's just a lot that goes into Tough that I think isn't as realistic as Contender. Is much more like a real fight because it's 3 full rounds. Tough, they're doing two rounds to try to, which is smart, to try to take some weight off the guys. But I think the Contender Series for fighters is, and it's a real UFC fight, although it falls under Contender Series. It's just really exciting. So when you start putting wins together, I can't wait to kind of talk about your preference, but I'm sure you'll go wherever is best for you. But I think there are some really great opportunities out there with some really high-end promotions. So it'll be exciting. I appreciate you coming on. Best wishes to you, your wife, and your beautiful daughter. and I hope to see you back on the show talking about your win. You've been listening to Luke Basin for MMA Fancast with the Adonis, Jeromy Mitchell. Jeromy, thanks so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yep.